Hi guys, it's Miss Moot, and we are well on our way through part 2, and we have some very interesting things to go through when Odysseus gets to confront the suitors. Now remember, Odysseus has been gone for 20 years, and Penelope's been, basically without her husband for 20 years. And she is now the lady in charge of the land in this whole country. However, women can't control things. We're too weak. Oh my gosh. So basically, these guys are all here because if they marry Penelope, they get to have the entire city of Ithaca and they get to rule over it and be king. So, of course, they're trying to grab her power. And there's like a bunch of people there. As Telemachus told us, there's like over 100 different suitors present trying to win the hands of Penelope. Now, we don't have this mentioned in the book, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Penelope is pretty smart. Her epithet is the ever faithful Penelope, so you can definitely tell she's been faithful, way more than Odysseus, in my opinion. But she has kind of devised her own way of making sure the suitors don't try and take her. She had at first, of course, told them, no, let's wait. My husband will be home. I don't need you. But they've been laying around the castle, eating all the food, making fun of the servants, and sometimes having their ways, like, having all these demands for the servants and stuff. So she tried to figure out a way to keep them from messing with her. And so actually, if you look on page 602, you can see a picture of it. She told them, she's like, I need to weave this loom, basically it was like a big tapestry, and tapestries showed images. And she's like, I need to finish my tapestry. It displays this very important battle scene or whatever. And once I finish my tapestry, then I'll be ready to take on a new husband. Everyone's like, all right, cool. Go ahead and finish that tapestry, lady. Go get working on it. So she would sit down every day and she'd sit there and she'd weave the loom back and forth. Weave the tapestry back and forth on her loom. And it takes a long time, has lots of colors, and it's very ornate. But every night when everyone was asleep, Penelope would go back and she would unweave it and take out all the strings she'd worked on that day. So the next day she'd be like, back to weaving, and she would literally start over, rinse and repeat, because she hardly made any progress because it was just so ornate and whatever. And for some reason, they were never bothered by this because she was like, no, the second I finish, I'll be ready for a husband. And she's kept them at bay for a very long time. So now we're going to meet the suitors. Have your books. I'm on page 603 of the actual textbook. I'm going to pause as we go, obviously, and we'll listen to the very lovely recording. Ready? Oh, also, I'll show you this. Since you don't have to look at my face on the big screen the whole time. I thought this was funny. This is one of my favorite little meme things that I have about the Odyssey. So, time for the suitors.
The suitors. Still disguised as a beggar, Odysseus enters his home. He is confronted by the haughty suitor Antinous. But here Antinous broke in, shouting, God, what evil wind blew in this pest? Get over, stand in the passage. Nudge my table, will you? Egyptian whips are sweet to what you'll come to here, you nosing rat, making your pitch to everyone. These men have bread to throw away on you because it is not theirs. Who cares? Who spares another's food when he has more than plenty?
So, basically, Odysseus has come to the room with suitors, but he's disguised as the beggar. No one knows who he is. And what it doesn't tell us is that he kind of trying to get a lay of like who all's there and basically what they're about. So disguised as the beggar, he's going from table to table like, oh, do you have any food to spare? I'm just an old beggar man. I'm just so hungry. And some of the suitors are like, oh yeah, sure. Here's some bread. Here's a bit of chicken left over. You're welcome. But this one dude, who I've always heard as Antinous, but Antoas, as he says, is just like, what the heck are you doing here? You're gross and you're disgusting. Why are you bothering us in these halls? So I'll go ahead and tell you now, Antinous is very hot-headed and very quick to action. And he, in this sense, acts as our foil to Odysseus. So Antinous is another very important character for us.
With guile, Odysseus drew away, then said, a pity that you have more looks than heart. You grudge a pinch of salt from your own larder to your own handyman. You sit here fat on others' meats and cannot bring yourself to rummage out a crust of bread for me. Then anger made Antinous' heart beat hard, and glowering under his brows, he answered, now, you think you'll shuffle off and get away after that impudence? Oh, no, you don't. The stool he let fly hit the man's right shoulder on the packed muscle under the shoulder blade, like solid rock for all the effect one saw. Odysseus only shook his head, containing thoughts of bloody work as he walked on, then sat and dropped his loaded bag again upon the doorsill.
So, Odysseus calls him out which dresses the beggar man. No one knows who he is. But she's like, you're so selfish. You have more looks than heart, which I'm sure Antinous was just like, he called me pretty. But he's like, I can't believe you would act this way. It's not even your food you're eating, and you're not even going to give me any. How selfish can you be? And Antinous gets so angry that he throws a stool at this old beggar man. He's like, here, have this, and hurls a stool at him. What the heck, man? Not cool. But Odysseus just shakes it off and like walks over and sits down and like gets out all his stuff. So now Odysseus, the beggar, no one knows who he is facing the whole crowd.
In the whole crowd, he said, and eyed them all. One word only, my lords and suitors of the famous queen. One thing I have to say. There is no pain, no burden for the heart when blows come to a man, and he defending his own cows and lambs. Here it was otherwise. Antinous hit me for being driven on by hunger. How many bitter seas men cross for hunger? If beggars interest the gods, if there are furies pent in the dark to avenge a poor man's wrong, then may Antinous meet his death before his wedding day.
So at this point, Odysseus definitely is like playing up what he has in his strengths, because no one knows who he is. But he's like, oh, for this one to be this selfish, like, it'd be reasonable for somebody to come, try and challenge people to protect his own land and his cattle and his sheep. Well, duh, it's all Odysseus' land and cattle and sheep. But he says, but to get angry at someone for just wanting some food for hunger, ugh. And so he gives another like kind of nod to the fact that he actually is in disguise, but of course they don't pick up on it. It's too subtle. And then he says, oh, if the gods would avenge the beggar, help out and don't let Antinous see his wedding day. Let him die before then. So Antinous is there to try and marry Penelope. So basically this old beggar guy is saying, I hope you die before you can marry the queen. And we know Odysseus has pretty good help, because who does he have fighting with him? He has himself, his son, Telemachus, Zeus, and Athena. That's a pretty good army.
Then said Eupeithes' son, Antinous, enough. Eat and be quiet where you are, or shamble elsewhere, unless you want these lads to stop your mouth, pulling you by the heels, or hands and feet over the whole floor, till your back is peeled. But now the rest were mortified, and someone spoke from the crowd of young bucks to rebuke him. A poor show, that, hitting this famished tramp. Bad business if he happened to be a god. You know they go in foreign guise, the gods do, looking like strangers, turning up in towns and settlements to keep an eye on manners, good or bad. And
he was like, fine, just go sit over there, don't get in the way, because if you get in the way, me and all these suitors are going to drag you out of here, and you're going to get, all bloodied up from being drugged on the floor, and we'll just laugh. And one of the suitors says, hey, that may not be a good idea, because what if he happened to be a god? They do that. Gods go in disguise to try and test people and turn up in towns to keep an eye on manners, good or bad. I'm looking at line 1259. And it's funny because we know that that's actually referring to what Grecian term? Xenia, which is like, to always be hospitable to guests. So they're like, hey, we really should be hospitable to this guest because, like, what if he's a god? But Antinous is Antinous, and so.
But at this notion, Antinous only shrugged. Telemachus, after the blow his father bore, sat still without a tear, though his heart felt the blow. Slowly, he shook his head from side to side, containing murderous thoughts.
Which is exactly what Odysseus said would happen. Remember, he was like telling the plan to Telemachus and meeting father and son. And he's like, you can't tell anybody. You can't act out when they hit me and stuff. Just, go about your business. And remember, his job is to get all the weapons off the walls and away from the men for when it's time to battle.
Penelope, on the higher level of her room, had heard the blow and knew who gave it. Now she murmured, would God you could be hit yourself, Antinous, hit by Apollo's bowshot. And Eurynome, her housekeeper, put in, he and no other? If all we pray for came to pass, not one would live till dawn. Her gentle.
So, we finally get to see Penelope, or hear from Penelope, and she's watching all this. She's like, Antinous, you would do this. I hope you would die by Apollo's bowshot. So basically, I hope you get hit by Apollo and die, which it kind of lets you know Penelope is not playing around with these suitors. She's like, y'all are the worst. I hate you so much. And her housekeeper, Eurynome, is like, just him? You'd wish all of them would be dead by dawn if we had our way. So the gentle mistress, back to being Penelope.
Mistress said, oh, Nan, they are a bad lot. They intend ruin for all of us. But Antinous appears a blacker-hearted hound than any. Here is a poor man come, a wanderer, driven by want to beg his bread, and everyone in hall gave bits to cram his bag, only Antinous threw a stool and banged his shoulder. So she described it, sitting in her chamber among her maids, while her true lord was eating. Then she called in the forester, and said, "Go to that man on my behalf, Eumaeus, and send him here so I can greet and question him. Abroad in the great world he may have heard rumors about Odysseus, may have known him."
So this is when she's talking to her lady. She's like, yeah, Antinous is the worst. I hate him so much. And then she says, hey, let me talk to that beggar man. He's probably a wide world traveler. Maybe he's heard something about my husband. Maybe he can have answers for me. So let me talk with him. So in our next, step of the story is when she gets to talk to Odysseus. So all in all, basically, I was just taken to the fact that he's disguised as a beggar the whole time. No one except for Telemachus knows who Odysseus is. And the fact that he had conflict with Antinous and the suitors, and the other suitors were pretty willing to help out an old beggar man, but Antinous was like, no, murderous rage, you must, get out of here, and throws things at him. That's not cool. So we definitely learned a lot about Antinous. And we also learned about Penelope, the fact that she's not having any of this stuff from the suitors. Like, she's like, I am tired of you guys being here. I wish you would leave. And I wish Antinous would die. So hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next story.